Hey guys, we're here today to talk about some basic maintenance you can do on your road and gravel bikes to keep them running as best they can. There's a lot you can do to keep your bike running really well just from home, just to keep the bike running good in between services. There's a lot you can do either just before your ride or in between. Let's get into it and talk about some really easy things we can do. First things first is tire pressures. Really important to have a track pump at home with a pressure gauge on it. Know your tire pressures. Check your tires themselves for the min and max pressures. You can experiment a little bit depending on, the type of conditions you're riding in, the type of terrain you're riding, your weight. There are no hard and fast rules, but do check your tires before every ride. They will drop a little bit of air over time, especially tubeless setups. Check your tire pressures, super basic, something that you should be doing every ride. Next is your chain. The chain is what transmits all that power from your pedals to the back wheel to the road. It's what keeps you rolling. You want to lube that chain. A dry chain not only is noisy, but it'll wear faster and it actually drags a little bit. There's a noticeable difference in drag from a dry chain compared to a lubed one. This is something you want to do pretty much every ride if you can. Certainly if you're riding in the wet, every single ride, every time. All you need is a little bottle of chain lube and a rag. And all we're gonna do is drop a little bit of lube on each link. Don't lube the chainring or the cassette, we just want to lube the chain. And all I'm gonna do, and you can do this on the ground, just lean the back wheel up against the wall or something. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop a little drop of lube on every single link. Just one drop until you've gone all the way around. We just want the lube to be in the rollers on the chain, nowhere else really. That's the only moving part we need to lubricate. The next important step is to wipe off the excess. Excess lube attracts dirt, it attracts grit, it'll wear your chain, it'll make it dirty. So we wipe off the excess lube just to leave what is needed in the chain rollers. So again, just grab your rag, and all we're gonna do is back pedal the chain through the rag until the chain is nice and clean. Clean chain is a happy chain. And then we have some nice dirty chain lube. Hopefully what's on the chain is pretty clean now and we're pretty much ready to go ride. Air pressure and chain lube are the two most basic things you want to be doing before pretty much every ride. Really important that you do that. But there are some other checks we can do. While we're talking about lubing the chain, one thing that I like to do every now and then is to check my chain. This is a chain wear indicator. Now, you don't need to have one of these at home. You can go to any bike shop and they will most likely check your chain for free, just to tell you what stage of wear it's at. The more you ride, the more you're gonna wear your chain. Replacing your chain more often means replacing drivetrain parts less often. Expensive things like cassettes, chainrings. So I'll check mine now. Hopefully it is not too worn, but we will see. No, my chain's good, thankfully. Super quick, takes seconds. The last thing we can do to make sure our bike is safe to ride, running well, is just a quick bolt check. There are a few different bolt checks that I like to do, and I'll show you all of them. The first one that I like to do is called an M check. You don't need a super expensive set of Allen keys. I'm just gonna use this Park Tool folding set. I think they're about $15. This is great for a home mechanic, even just to carry on the bike with you, really useful. It's got everything from a 1.5 mil up to a 6 mil, that's most sizes. So for an M check, all we're gonna do is we're just gonna check every bolt. And we start at the rear axle, and the reason it's called an M check is because we make an M shape when we check the bike. So we're just gonna start at the back, work our way to the front. So we'll start with the 6 mil. You don't need to put any extra turns on the bolts. I'm just putting the tool in the bolt and checking that it doesn't want to turn any further. That's all we need to do. If you start turning the ball, every time you do it, you're just loading it more and more until eventually they'll snap. So again, we just want to check that they're not loose. So I'm just gonna go through and check every bolt that I can find at this end of the bike. And I'm just gonna work my way through until I get to the front of the bike. Like I say, no extra turns, just making sure things are tight. I've got an 8 mil for the cranks. And that is pretty much all you need. One thing I am going to talk about is torque wrenches. Now, there are a bunch of different torque wrenches that you can get. I really like this one. This is the Park Tool ADT 1.2. This goes from 4 up to 6 Newton meters. This one is really good for checking things like stem bolts. Most of those fall in about the 5 to 6 Newton meter range. And this just has a little click when you reach your torque spec. Torque wrenches are really important because they mean A, you're not over tightening things, and B, you're not under tightening them. It just makes it really quick and easy to check things like stem bolts, things that are really critical. So again, I'm just going to check these and they are good. Great, so we are all torqued and ready to go. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is the drop test. I really like the drop test because it's really simple and it means you can easily identify if you've got any loose bolts. So I'm going to take the bike out of the work stand and drop it on the ground. I literally lift the bike about an inch off the ground and just drop it down. And we're just listening for any kind of loose rattling noises. Now, I can hear my chain rattling a little bit. That's completely normal. If you've got any loose bolts, this will kind of alert you to that. And it means you can now try to find whatever that noise is. All I can hear is my chain rattling, so I know that I'm good to go. Okay, so the final bolt check that I want to show you guys is just the headset. Now I grabbed a different bike just because my Specialized has a Future Shock headset, which is a little bit different. So I grabbed this Cervelo Sparrow, which is a little bit more like what you'll find on most other bikes. So what we're going to do is grab the front brake of the bike and just rock it back and forth. And if the headset is tight, you might feel a little bit of flex in the fork, for example, but it'll feel pretty much solid. If the headset is loose, you'll feel kind of a rocking movement in the headset cups, so top and bottom here. You can put your fingers on it and feel it. If the headset's loose, all we gotta do is tighten it. It's really easy. We will start by loosening off the stem pinch bolts. So these are the 2 bolts here that hold the stem onto the steer tube. Now, we're just gonna loosen those off by about half a turn. And that allows us to adjust the preload on the headset. And the preload is this top bolt. And what that does is it pulls the whole headset together, it preloads the bearings and keeps everything tight. Now, there's no torque spec for this. You don't need to go really tight. You just want to tighten it enough that it takes the play out. So I'm just going to tighten it by hand until we feel that the play in the headset is gone. You can just tighten it and just rock the bike, make sure it feels tight. And once it's good, we can grab our torque wrench and just nip up those pinch bolts here. And once those are tight, we are good to go. Now the last thing I want to talk about is electronic shifting. With electronic shifting, with Di2, with Axis, the components will get updates every now and then. And both of these different systems have a phone app that you can use to check for updates and push updates to the components. They'll do things like fix bugs, they will make things more efficient, they will maybe change the way they shift a little bit, they'll fix errors. So it's a good idea just to get your phone app out and just check for updates every now and then. I have the Axis app on my phone and it is super easy to use. I'm just going to open the Axis app. I'm going to search for components and we have a GX rear derailleur here which I'm going to connect to. I can click on the derailleur. Here it says we actually have a firmware update available. Great. Well, this is almost like I did it on purpose. All right, so now we have updated our GX rear derailleur. We can just wake up our shifters and check those for updates. We can also check the battery health in the shifters this way. Firmware is up to date on the left shifter and it is up to date on the right shifter. I can see that we've got good battery life for all components and that is it. That is your basic Axis maintenance. All right, now we've given the bike a good check over. We've made sure everything's working. We've made sure everything's tight. We've got air in our tires, lube on our chain. We are ready to ride. I hope you learned something in this video today. I hope you liked what you saw. If you did, feel free to hit subscribe, leave us a comment below. We'll see you out on the road. Cheers.